Thank you, councillors. Attendance. Mr. Benny, is there any apologies?
No apologies, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Council acknowledges and pays respects to the past, present and future traditional owners and elders of this nation and the continuation of culture, spiritual and educational practice of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Item number 1.3, offering of prayer. The prayer this evening has been issued by Mrs. Ursula Aruma of the Sri Saith Sai organisation, member of the Greater Dandenong Interfaith Network. Please stand.
Lord Mayor, councillors, distinguished guests, respected and revered elders, this is the prayer message from Sri Sagar Sale Organisation of Australia. Start the day with love. Fill the day with love. Spend the day with love. End the day with love. This is the way of God. Love is vital. Love is divine. Practice love in your daily living.
Thank you, Councillor Garrett. Item number 1.4, confirmation of minutes of previous meeting. I need a mover, please.
Happy to move, Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Dark, seconded by Councillor Milkovich. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 1.5, disclosures of interest. Mr. Benny.
Mayor and councillors, there's a single disclosure this evening from Councillor Tim Dark. It relates to item 2.2.3, town planning application for 41 Imagine Way, Dandenong South, PLN 17/0424.03. The type of interest is a direct material conflict of interest of a non-pecuniary nature. The nature of the interest is that the applicant, the entity, is a client of Councillor Dark's workplace. Councillor Dark will be required to redeclare the conflict prior to the item and leave the chamber for that matter.
Thank you. John? Item number 2, Officers' Report Part 1. 2.1, documents for tabling.
Happy to move, Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Dark, seconded by Councillor Tan. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 2.2.2, petitions and joint letters. Moved by Councillor Trong, seconded by Councillor Mamedi. With a question, your question, Councillor Mamedi.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just reading on the bottom of this, tabled at council meetings on 9th of March 2021, and going down further to that line, on the 16th of the 3rd, 21, petitioners have been acknowledged, it says. The Dandenong Community Hub and the concept designs were part of the discussions. And further up down the bottom, it says, further updates will be provided in due course. Could we have a bit of a timeline when that's going to happen?
Mr. Fiddler, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Mamedi. We actually have created a Dandenong Hub community page on our website, so it outlines all the dates in that. There's also a question tonight which will provide some more information on what the next steps are from the questions from the public. So I'll probably provide more information then, but we have provided the dates on the website under the Dandenong Community Hub page, so I'll leave it there. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. So people will be able to find these updates on the council website.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. It's live now. That information is there. And as I said, I've also provided a little bit more detail this evening around the community engagement process, which will be coming up once the consultant is appointed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 2.2, statutory planning applications. 2.2.1, planning decisions issued by the Planning Minister's Delegate, February 2021.
Happy to
Moved
move
by
it.
Councillor Dark, seconded by Councillor Lim.
Question, Madam Mayor.
Your question?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Just it says that amendment planning application has been put in. Through you to the relevant officer. What is this new 5-storey building, and when is it going to start construction?
Mr. Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, the original permit is that for the Children's Court, and the amendment is to do with the stormwater management condition. So in terms of when it will start, I'll have to get you those details, Councillor, but it's the Children's Court, the proposed Children's Court.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Any other questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Pardon me. Item number 2.2.2, Planning Delegate Decisions issued February 2021. Moved by Councillor Dark, seconded by Councillor Milkovich. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 2.2.3, Town Planning Application number 41, Imagine Way, South Dandenong. Application number PLN 17/0424.03. Moved.
No,
Oh, this is where you got
Yes.
the... Yep.
Thank you, Mayor. I have to declare a conflict of interest in this matter. The interest that I'm declaring, I have a direct material conflict of interest of a non-pecuniary nature, which is section 128, and that being that the entity is a client of my workplace.
Thank you. Item number 2.2.3, Town Planning Application number 41, Imaginary Way, Dandenong South, Planning Application number PLN 17/0424.03. Moved by Councillor Foster, second by...
Second that.
Sorry, you've got to stand. Councillor Garrard. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. We'll just wait for Councillor Dark to get back into the room. Item number 2.2.4, Town Planning Application number 94, Langhorne Street, Dandenong, Planning Application number PLN 20/0275. Councillor Garrard.
I have an alternate, Madam Mayor.
You have an alternate. Can you read out some of your alternate, please?
The Council resolves to refuse to grant a planning permit in respect of the land known as and described as 94 Langhorne Street, Dandenong, for the use and development of the land for a rooming house, new rooming house to the rear of an existing rooming house on the following grounds. The proposal would be an overdevelopment of the site. The intensity of the proposal is considered to be unacceptable in the context of this site and the surrounding area. The proposal would have an unacceptable impact on the level of amenity for neighbouring residents, including an increase in antisocial behaviour. The proposal would provide an unacceptable level of internal amenity for residents. The proposal would increase car parking congestion. The proposal would not contribute to the orderly planning of the area pursuant to Clause 65 of the Greater Dandenong Planning Scheme.
Moved by Councillor Garrard, seconded by Councillor Forster. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? Opposition indicated by Councillor O'Reilly. Only one. So Councillor Gerard, you've got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The residents of this area would be unduly impacted negatively by this development, and as I've outlined, it is a considerable disruption to their lives. The residents of this area have lived for some time with this facility next door to them. They consider an expansion of this would be an increase in the issues that I've outlined around disruptive behaviour, parking congestion, overdevelopment of the site.
As a seconder, Councillor Forster, please.
Yeah, I second what Councillor Garrard has said, and emphasising the impact on car spaces and the surrounding streets as well. It's quite concerning. Thank you.
Thank you. In opposition, Councillor O'Reilly, please.
Thank you, Mayor. If I can, well, firstly, Mayor, if I could remind councillors that we're actually making decisions on planning grounds, not on opinions, and going through the points of the alternates. Okay, the first one, overdevelopment of the site, is arguable. Second, the intensity of the proposal in context of the site, that's sort of linked to the first. The third one I find quite curious, Mayor, in that it's saying that this application will result in antisocial behaviour, which I would have thought is an incredible aspersion to put on rooming house tenants, some of whom may be in a transient mode of accommodation, and this council in this motion is going to say that these people are naturally antisocial. The fourth point, unacceptable level of internal amenity, which relates to the size of the rooms, again, is an arbitrary sort of judgment, not specified by a particular planning measurement or dimension. Number 5, car parking congestion can be applied. It does provide the on-site car parking as per planning code, so number 5 could be applied to any planning application that this council decides, so I don't think it's particularly relevant in this case. And number 6, I'm not too sure, orderly planning of the area. But what should be pointed out, Mayor, is with these two applications, it will mean that the rooming houses will be of sufficient size and number to have an on-site manager.
Councillor O'Reilly, we're only dealing with one at the moment, which is 94.
Okay, well, rather than I can get up and talk about them individually.
It's separate items, thank you.
Okay, if you treat applicants like this that have gone through the process, done the right thing, followed planning code, and if you treat applications like this and then try to knock them on the head at one of the last hurdles, then you encourage rooming houses to operate illegally. And that is the problem, illegal rooming houses, not ones that have actually done the right thing in good faith and lodged an application and are going to maintain and monitor the rooming houses properly. So rather, Mayor, than spend thousands of dollars on a refusal that would most likely be not be approved at VCAT, I would rather the council spend $10,000 increasing our monitoring and policing of illegal rooming houses, rather than just throwing the money up in the air at VCAT because this application has followed all the guidelines, and therefore there's no reason for this council to
Thank you,
refuse it.
Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Is there any other speakers for or against? Yes, Councillor Milkovich.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just briefly, I tend to agree with Councillor O'Reilly. I do understand that members of public in general are quite concerned about rooming houses being and operating in their neighbourhood. And I would like to think that us as Australians are, most of the time, 99% of the time, are quite welcoming, heartwarming people. So what I'd like to remind is we are dealing, whether I'm up against it or for it, it's almost irrelevant. The planning application should be determined and the decision based on the actual merit, not our feelings. I would just like to remind the members of the community of this council is if these people that are in need of rooming house accommodation, legal rooming house accommodation, if that was one of their friends, relatives or family members, where do they go? If we knock back every single application for a rooming house, these people that are in need, and we shouldn't be judgmental to say that they're going to create problems with their behaviour because this is highly judgmental. We don't know what these people go through. How would we, as members of a society, as friends and relatives, feel about those same people? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Milkovich. Any other speakers for or against? Yes, Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I wish to rise to support Councillor Garrard's alternate motion that she's put forward, and I speak on the terms as a council who represents the whole municipality. The last 4 years, I've always taken an approach that the whole municipality need to consider things on merit. I do agree with that, but it is absolutely known that, as Councillor Garrard has put in her notice, or the alternate, that there is always an increase in antisocial behaviour. This is our city, and we want to make sure that we have a place that is livable. We want to make sure we provide the best housing stock available. We want to make sure that we're attracting the right people. Having boarding houses where you're cramming people into a very small dwelling, having to share communal facilities, does lead to issues, and we see that in Dandenong West at the moment. Only last year there was a fatality with a stabbing between two people living in a boarding house, and it's common knowledge that the police are frequently called to boarding house issues. So I do agree that we, whilst I can understand where Councillor O'Reilly and Councillor Milkovich are coming from, we do need to also assess the situation and the facts on a case-by-case basis. And condensing this many people into a central area is going to cause a lot of issues in the future. And that is why I'm supporting Councillor Garrard with the alternate.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Any other speakers? Councillor Mehmedi, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise to speak for the alternate motion. I think this is absolute overdevelopment. It's taking advantage of the most vulnerable people in our community. We've seen that in Hemming Street, Dandenong. We can see it not far from Langhorne Street on the corner of Stud Road and Cloud Street, where the police are frequent visitors there on a daily basis. Langhorne Street is one of the most beautiful streets in Dandenong. By putting what this applicant wants on that site is completely nothing along that street. It'll totally be out of character, and I do not support this rooming house in this location for those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mehmedi. Any other councillors want to speak for or against? Yes. No, you're the seconder. Sorry, you don't have. Is there any others?
Yes.
Yeah, Councillor Tan, please.
Yes, I just got a question to the relevant officer just regarding to the car space. Why is there different car space policy in terms of rooming house and the normal residential house?
Mr. Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, the planning scheme sets out different ratios for different land uses based on the modelling that those particular uses generate. And a normal, let's call it a normal dwelling, is deemed to generate a higher number of vehicles per the number of rooms or the number of residents than a rooming house. If I can translate that, if you have a look at a rooming house, the number of residents in a rooming house are less likely to have the same number of cars or the same number of people that you would have living in a dwelling. A family would possibly have 2 or 3 vehicles in a family situation. The same number of residents in a rooming house are unlikely to have the same number of vehicles. So it's based on the generation, the modelling of the generation of vehicles that is likely to be generated by a particular land use. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Any other questions or speakers for or against? Councillor Garrard, you've got a right of reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just to reinforce what other speakers have said, Councillor Dark and Councillor Mehmeti, this is an overdevelopment. It is out of character for that area. It will impact on the residents that live in that area, and it is an unacceptable level of overdevelopment of that area.
Thank you. I will now put it to the vote. All those in favour of the alternate, please raise your hand. Councillor Trong, Councillor Forster, Councillor Garrard, Councillor Long, Councillor Mehmeti, Councillor Tan, Councillor Lim and Councillor Dark. Those against? Councillor O'Reilly, Councillor Formoso and Councillor Milkovich. It is carried, the alternate. Thank you. Item number 2.2.5, planning application number 96 Langhorne Street, Dandenong. Planning application PLN 20/0276. Councillor Garrard.
I have an alternate, Madam Mayor.
Please.
Shall I read the whole thing?
No, you just have to say the number, I think, number 96.
So number 96.
And it's the same alternate.
It's the same alternate.
It's the same alternate. I have a mover for, pardon me, an alternate, seconded by Councillor Foster. And is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? Councillor O'Reilly. Councillor Garrard, please. It's the same.
Once again, Madam Mayor, I'd just like to point out the issue is the same. It's an unacceptable level of overdevelopment and impact on residents in that.
Thank you, Councillor Foster, please.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess what I wanted to add earlier, when we put a great number of people in the one residence, you are going to get certain issues. From my understanding, when I have worked with those that have lived in rooming houses, that the concern is that some people would rather live on the streets than in some rooming houses. And when you put so many people in one room sharing these facilities, you are going to get conflict naturally. And that's a particular concern in terms of the antisocial behaviour, along with the car spaces. Thank you.
Thank you. In opposition, Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you, Matt. I've got a few more points. I'm not just going to repeat what I've said, but it is certainly a key thing, Mayor, that this application will allow for a full-time supervision of a site manager, and 6 objections over the 2 applications is comparatively low. I think that really, and I think some of where the disconnect is with some of this is that, and sort of going to what Councillor Foster said, like people don't choose to live in rooming houses, right? So it's not like we're saying, okay, these are too small for you, you can move into the mansion next door, right? These are people that are down on their luck, that need somewhere to stay. And they're not all antisocial, right? Some of them are, but a lot of them are good people, right, that need somewhere to stay. And we can talk in this council all we want about how we don't want the homeless and how these people need help, and yet when there's an opportunity in front of us now to make a decision either way, right, we're just saying, this is the city of opportunity, but if you're down on your luck and you need a brief stay at rooming house, we don't want you because you're going to be antisocial and the surrounding residents don't like it. So what this will do, if we take this attitude, right, to an applicant that's done the right thing and applied for rooming, or say talking about just this application, a rooming house, the demand will remain for people that have no choice but a rooming house, and the illegal rooming houses flourish. Right? So if councillors are willing to spend $10,000 at VCAT to lose and allow illegal rooming houses to flourish because proper applications just get knocked back at council, so why would you even bother? Then think carefully about the decision you're making here right now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Dark, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I rise once again to support Councillor Garrard's alternate motion. And the reason being, to provide some context for those in the gallery and watching by webcast at home, these are two blocks side by side owned by the same group. And this is not providing, and I have to disagree with Councillor, this is not providing a housing stock for people who are vulnerable in the community. This is about a greedy developer ramming on our community, on our amenity, a massive overdevelopment of boarding houses. That's exactly what this is. And if you need a context to prove that this was a greedy developer, on the 9th of April 2019, they submitted on the exact same site to council the use for 4 rooming houses across the 2. And it was a very, very, very dense development, which council has clearly put up an opposition to it, because only 1 month later did that applicant withdraw the application for the 4 houses. So it clearly shows that he is going in for the max to maximise the amount of money that they can possibly make at the expense of our community. And that is why I agree with Councillor Garrard and I can't support this.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Mamedi.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I again rise to support the alternate motion. Following on from Councillor Dark, this is a very greedy developer. On those 2 sites, there's currently boarding houses which are servicing our community. By putting more on the same property is just increasing more potential for problems to arise. As I stated before, corner of Stud and Cloud Street is a perfect example. Take yourself down Hemming Street, Potter Street. These boarding houses are absolutely all over the place. If we're going to make a stand, this is a time and a place we need to make a stand, and whether we go to VCAT or not, we need to stand up for our community.
Thank you, Councillor Mamedi. Any other speakers for or against? No, you're right to reply, Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to restate that the City of Dandenong Council fully supports people who are down on their luck and has taken many measures to prove that again and again. So I take exception to the accusation that we are targeting that group of people. I'd also like to say that that we have been accused of conflating this issue that that antisocial behaviour will take place. That point is actually based in fact and based in past examples of antisocial behaviour at this particular site. I would say that I think the speaker against this was conflating the issue by saying that this will generate illegal rooming houses or allow them to flourish. I think that's a jumping the shark, can I say, and conflating this issue. This issue is about one point in time. This particular development, which we are all very clear generally within this council, is in fact an unacceptable level of development and will contribute to increased problems in that area.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Now I'm going to put the alternate to this item to a vote. All those in favour for the alternate? Councillor Trong, Councillor Foster, Councillor Garrard, Councillor Long, Councillor Mamedi, Councillor Lim, and Councillor Dark. All those against? Councillor O'Reilly, Councillor Forster, Formoso, and Councillor Pan. Oh, sorry, you've got to put your hand up, not just a pencil. And Councillor Milkovich. Thank you very much. The item is carried. The alternate is carried. Item number 2.2.6, Town Planning Application number 66 to 88, 98 to 100 and 168 to 222 Clark Road, Springvale South. Planning Application number PLN 18/0688. Moved by... Have I got a mover? Yep, Councillor O'Reilly. Yeah, seconded by...
I'll second, Mayor.
Councillor Dark. Is there any questions, Councillor? Councillor Garrard, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, Madam Mayor, could the appropriate officer outline the recommendations the council is making around protecting the chain of parks access concept on this land, and how the mechanisms put in place will in perpetuity ensure access to the chain of parks concept?
Mr Bosman, please.
Mayor, through yourself, Councillor Garrard, and you'll see within the report, there are a number of conditions that are proposed to address the chain of parks and the open space, both in the initial development of the site and also to retain this in perpetuity. Condition 1.2, for example, requires the publicly accessible chain of parks open space area to be detailed on the amended plans required to be submitted for endorsement. So this will clearly detail the area that's going to be provided. Condition 2, in particular condition 2.9, requires the landscaping of this area, and again that will be, as say, under 2.9, a specific plan that will need to be considered. And then condition 6 requires a section 173 agreement to be entered into that ensures the ongoing provision of public access to the chain of parks land. A section 173 agreement is a legally binding agreement that is registered on title. So if the land is sold, the obligation transfers to the new owner of the land as well. And this ensures that that open space, which would then be consistent with the chain of parks policy, is retained in perpetuity. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor Garrard, no more? Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 6, question time public. Mr Benny.
Mayor and councillors, the first question this evening is from Sylvia Mastrogiovanni. Sylvia has requested to ask her own question, so she can move to the microphone.
Sorry about that. Item number 6, number 3.
Following the strategic planning weekend, when will there be early community consultation on the concept design of the Dandenong Community Hub, as resolved by the Council at the Council meeting of the 14th of September 2020? And also the same process of genuine community input as what happened with the Keysborough South Community Hub.
Thank you.
Mr Fiddler could respond, Madam Mayor.
Mr Fiddler, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Sylvia, for your question. There are a number of important steps to progress the development of the Dandenong Community Hub, and we're currently in the process of recruiting a consultant to assist us with this important work. Once they are appointed, and we hope that will be in the beginning of April, we will confirm the community engagement plan, including the dates and times for community consultation. This information will be provided to residents and other interested stakeholders, consistent with how we promote and provide information on other projects. So it will include things like social media, our website, emails, promotion through key organisations. We also have a very large petition list of people that we can respond to. So along with this process, as I mentioned earlier to Councillor Mehmeti, we have also developed a Dandenong Community Hub page on the Council website, and we'll provide regular updates and information there for people to keep in touch with us. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Fiddler.
Okay. So just to clarify then, we will be informed of these dates in good time?
Absolutely, as I answered, once the consultant has been appointed and we can work through the engagement plan, we'll then promote the dates and the times.
And to clarify again, will there be early community consultation?
Well, that's when it will start, is when the consultant starts, we can work out when those dates will be, and that's what we'll provide to the community. I believe there'll be a range of consultation dates through the whole project. It's a very big project. The business plan has certain aspects of consultation, and then as we get into concept design and then detailed designs later, there'll be a range of times when we consult with the community.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mr Benny, please.
Mayor and councillors, all other questioners have opted to have their questions read, so I'll proceed on that basis. The next is from Michelle Bidgood of Keysborough. Can we please have something done about the following? The amount of traffic coming in and out of Brienne Place to the college at pick-up and drop-off times, the illegal parking of parents picking up and dropping off kids at Sayed College. I'm sick and tired of not being able to get in and out of the street, let alone the property. The illegal practice of a traffic warden directing traffic at the corner of Brienne Place and Killarney Drive. Mr Chinquarana could respond, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Chinquarana.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, our traffic engineers are working very closely with the school at resolving these traffic issues and having them addressed as best we can. But they have also directed the school that unqualified operators should not be directing traffic on a public road.
Thank you. Mr Benny, please.
Next question is from Gianna Edwards of Dandenong North. Hi there. Before I ask my question regarding green waste, I would like to point out some matters that may not have been discussed or thoroughly thought about. You are not providing kitchen waste caddies and biodegradable bags for the kitchen waste to all residents as per Bass Coast. You are expecting residents and ratepayers to throw kitchen waste into a bin without a biodegradable bag, therefore creating potential health hazards with rats, mice, flies and stench. Being unsure as to how many councillors live in Greater Dandenong, I am still struggling to fathom your expectations regarding kitchen waste. Food for thought. I hope so for all councillors. However, it is what you are expecting of my parents. They are 82 and 86 respectively, and you are expecting them to wash a large green bin out weekly, I presume, because you have not provided ratepayers with a bin collection calendar. Why have you chosen to take this path without thinking it through? Is it not possible for my elderly parents to wash the green lid bin out on a weekly basis? Sorry, it is not possible for my elderly parents to wash the green lid bin out on a weekly basis. There is no shady spot in their courtyard. They have no room in their freezer. Has anyone taken these questions into consideration? Before I get Mr Chinquarana to respond, I can say that all councillors reside in the city of Greater Dandenong. Mr Chinquarana.
Mr Chinquarana, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I take the chance to respond point by point, I'd like to start by saying that all residents who pay for garden waste bins are entitled to a kitchen caddy to transfer their food organics from the kitchen to the garden waste bin separately from their general rubbish. Council has a no plastic bags policy and elected not to supply plastic bags with the kitchen caddies as this would be inconsistent with that policy. In addition to this, the inclusion of compostable plastic bags at some councils has led to some people using non-compostable bags, which can compromise the process and then the quality of the compost produced as a result of that. Similarly, sometimes the compostable bags don't break down themselves to the right extent. Instead, we've recommended approaches such as using paper towels or newspapers, which can wrap the caddy bin contents if required. The use of paper towel and newspaper is recommended in the guidance booklet which we supplied with all the kitchen caddies. Maintaining a closed curbside bin once the material is put into it is the best way to avoid the nuisance of unwanted pests. Council has distributed its annual community calendar to all households across the municipality. This was done in December and includes information on FOGO, the Food Organics, Garden Organics, links to Council's webpage and the website, and a collections calendar for residents to reference when their collection will occur. The inclusion of food to the garden waste bin is not expected to have a significant impact overall on volumes to be collected, and the collection remains at the fortnightly frequency. It is anticipated that residents will take responsibility for any required washing or cleaning of all three of their curbside collection bins, but there are a number of commercial operators in the marketplace who can help people who need assistance in cleaning their bins, or if they choose not to do that. We'd also suggest they're engaging the assistance of a family member or friends if they needed help with that.
Thank you, Mr Chinquarana. Mr Benny, please.
Madam Mayor, I should correct the brief statement I made. All councillors live in or operate businesses within the Greater Dandenong City Council. The next question is from Isabel Nash of Keysborough. It relates to Verge Nature Strip planting. Given the social and health benefit of nature strip gardens, will council please support these? Mr Bosman could respond, Madam Mayor.
Mr Bosman, please.
Mayor, through yourself, there to Isabel Nash, I can advise there's currently no provision to permit the planting out of nature strips in the city of Greater Dandenong. However, the existing local laws are currently being reviewed, and as part of that review, it will be proposed that planting on a nature strip be permitted, so long as it complies with nature strip guidelines, which too are being prepared at this stage. The reviewed draft local law will be put out to community consultation in the near future. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Mr Benny, please.
Next question is from Sabrina Miletto of Dandenong. Following on from my question at the last council meeting, what is meant by appropriate engagement of our Greater Dandenong community regarding the Little India redevelopment? In a community where so many are not online and so awareness of council or state government projects are low on any only an Australia Post letter to each household will effectively let people know what is going on. Mr Chinkragana could respond.
Mr Chinkragani, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The master planning process and the associated community engagement will be led by Capital Alliance with Development Victoria. And the details of how this will occur have not yet been set, but are scheduled to be announced later in the year. Council will be guided by this process that will be set by Development Victoria and Capital Alliance, and we will continue to advocate for community views to be considered as part of the master planning. The announcement of the Foster Street redevelopment received a good deal of coverage in the local and state media, and Council will continue to utilise our own media avenues, such as print and electronic, to share engagement opportunities with the local community as they arise. Development Victoria has stated its commitment to keeping the Dandenong community updated and encourages the community to sign up for their mailing list and then to share their preferred contact methods. And of course, we encourage all in the community to sign up for that mailing list.
Thank you, Mr Chinkragani. Mr Benny, please.
The next question is from Megan Mack of Keysborough. Has the detailed design for the Keysborough South Community Hub been finished? If not, when is it expected to be finished and actual construction expected to start? I was looking at the page on the hub on the Greater Dandenong website, and it doesn't seem to have been updated since late last year. Mr Chinkragana could respond, Madam Mayor.
Mr Chinkragani, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, the detailed design hasn't been completed. It's still being finalised, along with all the associated tender documents. It is anticipated that we'll be able to advertise the tender with that design and all the documents in August, and then construction would follow in November. The website is correct at the moment, but certainly when we've got that detailed design complete, we'll update the website accordingly.
Thank you, Mr Chinkragani. Mr Benny, please.
Next question is from Sonia Navidi of Dandenong North. Last year there was a master plan finalised for 2 new playgrounds at the Barry Powell Reserve. When is construction planned for them? There are so many young families in the area, but the local playgrounds are in desperate need of an upgrade. Mr Bosman could respond.
Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you to Sonia Navidi. The Barry Powell Reserve Master Plan was adopted by Council in March of 2020. The 2 playgrounds were both identified in the Master Plan as future capital works improvement projects for the reserve as part of the long-term implementation of the Master Plan. The northern playground was the upgrade is to include a nature play area, and the southern playground relocates the playground to the large parkland area south of the Jan Wilson Centre and upgrades it to a district-level playground. In terms of concept design, both of these playgrounds are identified as high priorities. However, the actual construction of the playground is a medium priority and most likely a few years away from implementation. Both of these projects are subject to the support of future separate capital works bids for design and construction being funded as part of the Council's annual budget process. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Mr Benny, please.
The next question is from Sabrina Miletto of Dandenong. When will Council be developing the open space they purchased in Herbert Street into a park? Mr Bosman.
Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you to Sabrina Miletto. Council has received funding from the state government to transform the site into a new pocket park. The park will include shade, seating and plantings for local residents to relax outdoors and be close to nature. The new park will be part of a new tree-lined green spine from Dandenong High School along Herbert Street to Robert Booth Reserve. This will include around 60 new trees and landscaping to improve the comfort for residents walking to and from community facilities and help reduce the effect of climate change. Council officers are currently preparing concept plans for the Herbert Street site and streetscape upgrade works. It is anticipated that community engagement on these ideas for this new park will occur in late April and May 2021. Thank you,
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Mr. Benny, please.
The next question is also from Sabrina Miletto of Dandenong. What was the outcome of the public consultation on a local law protecting large trees on private land, i.e. how many submissions and what percentage support? Mr. Bosman.
Mr. Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you again to you, Sabrina Miletto. With regard to this particular aspect of the consultation, there were 107 responses to this particular question. Of the responses received, 63.5% strongly agreed with a local law protecting large trees on private land. 5.61% agreed. There were 1.87% of respondents that neither agreed nor disagreed. 2.8% disagreed, and 26.17% strongly disagreed. So council officers are collating all submissions and will present to councillors the full outcomes of the consultation regarding the local law as well as the draft urban forest and greening our neighbourhoods strategies at a future council meeting. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Mr. Benny, please.
The next question is from Charlie Mastrogiovanni of Dandenong. In the Victoria State Government guidelines called Rooming Houses, a Guide for Residents and Operators, and the Dandenong Share Accommodation Fact Sheet, it is clearly explained that for persons who are accommodated for a period of 31 days or less, the maximum number of persons permitted to occupy a bedroom is A, in the case of a bedroom with a floor area of less than 10 metres squared, 2 persons, and B, in the case of a bedroom with a floor area of 10 square metres or more, 3 persons and an additional person for every 2 square metres of floor area that exceeds that 10 square metres. With the capacity of 40 rooms, which includes the 2 existing buildings on the property at 94 to 96 Langhorne Street, Dandenong, and the size of the rooms, I estimate that between 93 minimum to 194 maximum persons can be accommodated. This can be built anywhere in the city of Greater Dandenong. A, is this what our council or councillors want to achieve for our community? B, will council change its own planning scheme and or local laws to restrict rooming houses to less and more reasonable numbers of occupants and houses on the same property? C, will council lobby state government to enforce good management of rooming houses to ensure the safety and livability of both occupants and neighbouring residents? Mr. Bosman.
Mr. Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Through you to Mr. Mastrogiovanni. In terms of the Victoria planning provisions, anyone has the right to apply for a rooming house planning permit in a residential zone. Those provisions cannot be changed by local government. Every application must and will be assessed on its individual merits, and it is in terms of the planning scheme permit conditions that the numbers of occupants can be restricted, such as that table tonight for number 94, number 96 Langhorne Street, where officers recommended that occupancy be restricted to 1 person per bedroom. That equates to the maximum number of residents being limited to 24 occupants for the 94 Langhorne Street application and to 16 occupants for the 96 Langhorne Street application. Council's town planning, public health and building team officers all respectively enforce matters around public amenity, health and safety of rooming houses and the neighbouring areas. Council is also engaging with other agencies in addressing the concerns of illegal rooming houses and the adverse impact of these where they occur. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Mr. Benny, please.
Next question is also from Charlie Mastrogiovanni of Dandenong. Why doesn't this Hemmings Precinct Action Plan have a priority first-year action to deal with criminal and or antisocial behaviour in both rooming houses and squat houses. That's A. B. What resident feedback was incorporated into the Hemmings precinct plan and what wasn't? Other council plans detail that in the public council report. This one does not. C. Will there be annual updates to the Hemmings precinct plan to Dandenong residents on progress? And D. When is the targeted end date for the plan? And will there be a midpoint review? And if so, when will that be? Mr Fiddler, Madam Mayor.
Mr Fiddler, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Charlie, for your questions. In terms of question A, the action plan response will involve Council, Victoria Police, state government departments and other local stakeholders. Antisocial behaviour in both rooming houses, illegal rooming houses and squat houses is covered under priority area 3 of the draft plan, which deals with enhancing crime prevention, security and safety infrastructure. In relation to question B, the consultation analysis of the precinct perceptions of safety survey, that's a long line, isn't it, is included in the report, which provides a summary of residents and other stakeholders' feedback. The report notes that responses indicate the action plan in its current form addresses the identified community concerns and expectations. They are being improvements in public lighting in key locations, the introduction of CCTV in certain residential areas, increasing Neighbourhood Watch precinct membership, and increasing community engagement through arts, cultural activities and other community events. From question 3, will there be annual updates? There will be annual updates as part of the council reports from the Community Safety Advisory Committee and through reporting of the Community Safety Plan. Question D, the plan will be reported on annually through the Community Safety Advisory Committee and subject to successful grant funding applications that are quite detailed in the report. We anticipate the plan will be reviewed after 2 years and we're hopeful too that there will be ongoing recommendations after those 2 years. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Fiddler. Mr Benny, please.
The final question this evening is from Gay Guest of Keysborough. Why are planning permits, either PLNs or P-subs, advertised on the online council portal when many can't be objected to by residents? Historically, many of our planning problems start at the state government level before residents even realise that land will be sold off or subdivided. After elaborate plans are designed by developers on land that is not quarantined, the residents are the last to know and get cranky with council for not imposing stricter rules, permits and policies. At every stage of the permit process, residents should be able to object about anything that falls under development plan overlays and DDOs, which determine size, form, build, setbacks, etc. Is this loophole that has transformed all our housing blocks into dense, ugly, teeny tiny box developments and residents cannot protest, and when they do, their concerns are rejected and not even considered? Why is this the case? Mr Bosman, Madam Mayor.
Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you to Ms Guest. The Section 49 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987, Council is required to keep a planning register of all applications for permits it receives. The purpose of this register is only to allow any person to view and be aware of an application. It is not the list of applications that objections can be submitted for. In other words, amongst them would be those that you can and those that you can't object to. It's a full list of applications received. In terms of objecting to applications, not all applications can be objected to, as some are exempt from the advertising provisions of the planning scheme. To view the list of applications that are advertised and objections can be submitted for, I would encourage residents and Ms Guest to view the advertised applications page under the Migrate to Dandenong section of the Council website. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. That was the last question. Thank you. Item number 4, Officers Report Part 2, 4.1 Other, 4.1.1 Hemming Street Precinct Action Plan. Moved by Councillor Dark, seconded by Councillor Milkovich. Is there any questions, councillors? Councillor Dark, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. May I ask a quick question to the relevant officer? I note that it states number 2 is write letters to the local federal members of Parliament, being the federal member for Bruce Julian Hill and Claire O'Neill, the federal member for Hotham. Sorry. I just wanted to clarify, with regards to the precinct funding, why we're also not writing to, apart from the Minister for Planning, why we're not writing to the local state MPs as well, given that from what I can see, my understanding is that they're responsible for precincts.
Which one? Mr Fiddler, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, there is a network of state government organisations. We've already met, Councillor Mehmeti and myself, late last year, met with a range of state members. They're already involved. In the report, it mentions two very large grants that we're applying for. We're sending letters to local MPs asking for them to support these grant applications. On top of that, we're also writing to the federal members asking if they'll support us with additional grants that they have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that all, Councillor Dark? Councillor Mehmeti, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In item 3, it states collaborate with Minister for Planning Richard Wynne. Can we also put in there as well to also collaborate with the Minister Melissa Horne from Consumer Affairs, who's the Minister for Boarding Houses, because that's a big problem in this precinct, and I'd like to keep that Minister involved. So if that's okay with the mover and seconder, that we include Melissa Horne, the Minister for Consumer Affairs.
Is that okay with the mover and seconder? Yep, thank you. Is that it, Councillor Mehmeti? Is there any other questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 4, sorry.
I was just waiting for Councillor Dark to say a few words, but I'm happy to say something.
Yep.
It's been a lot of work gone into this. There's been a lot of problems in that area. It was a difficult year last year, and as the Director of Community Service said, we had a meeting with 3 or 4 ministers last year to try to get an outcome, and this is going to be a start. I can hear from the community they're not 100% happy with this, and I'm sure we can tweak it as we go through. But it's a start, and it's something that we're not going to be able to fix straight away, but it's going to take time, and I'm happy that we're taking these first steps now.
Thank you, Councillor Mehmeti. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wish to rise to echo Councillor Mehmeti's sentiment on the Hemming Street Action Plan. This has been a very long time coming. Not long after I was first elected in 2016, did I become fully aware of the issues and challenges that Hemming Street faced residents, particularly in the city of Greater Dandenong, and then also the impact that had not only on the residents in Dandenong West, but also in central Dandenong and the neighbouring suburbs as well. Coming up with the action plan actually then provides us with a proper structure to be able to deal with the issues versus continuously lodging notices of motion, asking for more police, for more services. I'd actually now be setting up a proper action plan to deal with it. Also negotiating, having conversations with youth, people of called backgrounds, in any other way that we can possibly work to be able to mitigate any of the issues that have come out of the survey. And the issues that came out of the survey were quite concerning. I know to the majority of councillors, if not all, particularly around the antisocial behaviour, the threats to traders who felt unsafe at night, and the recent attacks that have occurred there. So whilst, as Councillor Mehmeti said, this is not an overnight fix, it's going to take quite some time to be able to get there, but at least now we're setting up the base loan to be able to then head up and then hopefully build it up to what will become a good area and a safe area for people to reside and live.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Councillor Foster, please.
Hi, thank you. Thanks, Madam Mayor. I also like to commend Council on putting this forward. I know this was before my time on Council, and as the councillor that represents the ward of Yarram and that much of Hemming Street precinct falls into, I think this is a great step forward. But again, it will take a long process, like Councillor Mehmeti and Councillor Dark have said. I think we also need to look at the underlying issues as well that create these concerns for the residents in the area. But I guess let's watch this space and let's look forward to see what comes of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item number 4.1.2, draft minutes of Community Safety Advisory Committee meeting 10th of February 2021.
Happy to move it, Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Formoso, seconded by Councillor Tan. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 4.1.3, landfill and transfer station services contract. Moved by Councillor Gerard, seconded by Councillor Dark. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 4.1.4, reports on matters discussed at council briefing sessions and pre-council meetings 22nd of February and 1st of March 2021. Moved by Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Formoso. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 4.1.5, review of mayoral and councillors' allowances. Moved by Councillor Gerard, seconded by Councillor Lim. Thank you. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 4.1.6, list of registered correspondence to mayor and councillors. Moved by Councillor Gerard, seconded by Councillor Trong. Is there any questions, councillors? Yes, Councillor Formoso.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wondering if I could please get a copy of one of the letters that was sent to you regarding an unsightly property in Timberglade Drive, Noble Park North, please.
Right. Can we arrange that, please? Yes, thank you. It can be arranged.
Okay,
Councillor
and
Formoso.
also just as a matter of courtesy, if any letters that do happen to pop up that are in particular councillors' wards, if we could get a copy of that.
I think we all get a copy anyway.
No.
That comes on
No.
the agenda.
No.
You don't?
It's just by request, and I wasn't aware of this particular
Not a
issue, so I'd
problem.
like to be on top of
Not
that.
a problem.
Thank you.
very much for bringing that to our attention.
Got a question, Mayor.
Sorry, that can be arranged, Mr. Jench. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Ten.
Thank you. I've got a question. This is regarding to a resident request for councillor contact details in relation to traffic concerns on Chandler Road. Just to a relevant officer, could you please provide an update on this? Thanks.
Mr. Cipriani, please. Is it, or which one?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, we can provide a response to that. I would imagine this has gone to the Mayor and Councillors' PA, who probably most likely has provided the contact details of the councillors, but I'll confirm that for you.
Thank you, Mr. Jench. Is that all, Councillor Tan? Is that it?
Yeah. Is there any correspondence between the resident and whoever's in charge? I just need an update on the Chandler Road traffic issue. Thanks.
There's probably more.
Mr. Cipriani, please.
You know, Madam Mayor, I've got nothing to update on that at this stage, but I'll follow that up for Councillor Tan.
Not a problem, thank you. Councillor Tan. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Mamedi.
I really hate dump rubbish, and so do many other council. It costs the council so much money, and with the services that we have, the hard waste collection is free if you call. So, but what my question is, the last one, a complaint at the rubbish dumped in Queen's Avenue. I think it was all over Facebook. Has that already been cleaned up?
Mr. Cipriani, please.
No, I'd have to take that on notice, Madam Mayor.
Take it on notice. Mr. Benny, please.
Perhaps Councillor Lim might know more about it, but just to add a little bit further to that, I think we determined that rubbish had been dumped on Big Track land, not on council land. Mind you, wherever it's dumped, it's still a poor reflection on the city of Greater Dandenong, and we're not happy about it. But I think between council and Big Track, there was work being undertaken to determine who was responsible to collect that rubbish. And by the way, also to take steps towards preventing it happening in the future, whether it's on council land or any other public authority land.
Thank you, Mr Benny. Any other questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 5, notice of motion. 5.1, notice of motion number 5, ICAN, International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, Cities Appeal. Councillor Garrard, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Nuclear weapons are currently the biggest threat to world peace, with the risk of a nuclear war greater now than ever since the end of the Cold War. It will take less than 100 nuclear warheads to destroy society. There are approximately 15,000 nuclear weapons globally within 9 nuclear weaponised countries. No one is safe from this threat. The UN Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons is now in force, but unfortunately Australia is missing. The United Nations Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons is the first global treaty to ban
Point of order,
nuclear
Madam Mayor.
weapons and
Yes.
all activities.
Could you please sit
Who was
down?
the
It's
seconder?
called a point of
for-
order. Could you please sit down?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, who was the seconder for the notice of motion? There was no seconder.
No, she's just telling you what the notice of motion is.
Thank you.
And then we get a seconder after that.
Is the first global treaty to ban nuclear weapons and all activities related to them, and it builds on and extends and is complementary to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty established in 1968. Local governments have an important role to play as they are tasked with responsibility of both protecting their citizens and dealing with the aftermath of a nuclear detonation. Madam Mayor, the motion I put forward is that the Council endorses the ICAN Cities Appeal, which states that our city is deeply concerned about the grave threat that nuclear weapons pose to communities throughout the world. We firmly believe that our residents have the right to live in a world free from this threat. Any use of nuclear weapons, whether deliberate or accidental, would have catastrophic, far-reaching and long-lasting consequences for people and the environment. Therefore, we warmly welcome the adoption of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons by the United Nations in 2018, and we call on our national government to sign and ratify without delay. That the Council writes to the Minister for Foreign Affairs calling for the government to sign and ratify the treaty on behalf of the Australian people, and that the Council writes to ICAN to inform them of the Council's decision to join the ICAN Cities Appeal.
So this notice of motion has been moved by Councillor Gerard. I need a seconder, please. Councillor Foster, please. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition?
I oppose the motion.
Councillor Milkovich in opposition. Now you can speak to your... You've got 5 minutes.
Okay, so thank you, Madam Mayor. At Council, we can do both big and small. We can deal with both big and small issues. We do and can and always deal with the issues that are directly relevant to our residents. But we have a responsibility for the safety of our residents in relation to bigger issues that extend beyond the city of Greater Dandenong. Nuclear weapons is a threat to my children, to your children, to the children and the future generations of the city of Greater Dandenong. And as a council, I believe it is our responsibility to deal with this issue and to support this, the ban on nuclear weapons. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Foster as a seconder.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I second what Councillor Garrard has said. I do think that as councillors we can do the local things, but we can also press on matters that are on a global scale as well. As I've said to Council before, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I think we're capable of this. And I think it's important that we look at applying a bit of pressure to our government to sign this, this treaty. And there are cities within nations that do hold nuclear weapons that have also signed the ICAN Cities Appeal. So I think we can do this too and represent our community on a global scale as well as on a local scale. Thank you.
Thank you. In opposition, Councillor Milkovich, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of reasons for me opposing this notice of motion. First and foremost is that the imminent and grave danger threat that we are apparently facing now. Nuclear weapons, I've got to remind the council and councillors that last time the nuclear weapons were actually used as a weapon, not as a testing sort of facilities, were actually in 1945 in Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We did come close to using nuclear weapons, something America and Russia did during the Cuban Missile Crisis, but ever since that time, I think the sheer fact that nuclear weapons are possessed by these nuclear superpowers are actually used as a deterrent, not so much as a weapon that would be used in a normal sort of act of war, because we know that even if part of those weapons are used, would actually lead to a total annihilation of species of just about everyone on the planet Earth. So I think the notice of motion to say that this is an imminent threat, I think it's a bit of an overreaction. I think it's a bit of a nonsense, to tell you honestly. Second point is that this particular ICANN treaty would not work hand in hand, as far as I understand, with non-proliferation nuclear treaty that...
Your point of order.
Point of order.
Could you please sit down, Councillor
thank you,
Milkovich?
I've already given information to you that it extends and complementary, is not in conflict, so that is incorrect information.
So, from what I understand, it's not in conflict, it's complementary to it. So please...
Okay. Well, what this is in conflict with is going at odds end with a lot of our allies. First and foremost, the United States of America, which obviously this country's got a great political, military, and also all sorts of ties. So to think that this particular ICANN motion has not been signed by America, Russia, Israel, Pakistan, India, and a number of other, China, a number of other nuclear forces, begs the question as to what we can do as Australia. We don't even have nuclear weapons. I would argue that. What are we participating in? It really just, in my opinion, is a policy that will not actually contribute anything on a global scale. I can't see how this treaty or any other treaty that a number of other nations that are not members of a nuclear weapons force countries can actually get them to change their mind. So that'll be one of the reasons. Now, Councillor Garrett actually mentioned that local governments have a very important role, and I do firmly agree with that. So what I've done actually in the light of this sort of statement, I've actually gone and spoken to close to 100 of my local residents, and I've actually mentioned that this might be coming to the council, and every single one of them said, what is that about and how does that concern us? So if we really are acting in the best interest of our residents, if we're really representing their interest, I can say that from what I've gathered in my ward at least, not the whole of City of Greater Dandenong, is that this particular ICANN notice of motion has got nothing to do with what we need to do in the City of Greater Dandenong, which is solve the problem with rooming houses, with parking, with rubbish, so on and so forth. So that is my reason for opposing this notice of motion.
Thank you, Councillor Milkovich. Have we got any other speakers for or against? Councillor Dark, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Mayor, I rise to oppose this notice of motion because I think this is something that we've previously had a discussion about and we've gone around in circles, and the fact at the end of the day is we have our obligations, the Australian government has its obligations to our overseas partners, and the ANZUS agreement and treaty, which is the partnership between Australia and...
Point of order has been called.
Point of order, Madam Mayor, that's not correct. That there is no pressure under the ANZUS treaty and a treaty with America that this will threaten. That has been stated by America that their allies are able to sign this treaty and not in any way jeopardise a partnership with America or any of our nuclear weapon allies.
Thank you. Councillor, please don't mention...
well, Mayor, actually, before Councillor Garrard cut me off, I was actually getting to the stage of where I was going to explain the treaty obligations to which the Australian government has. And Councillor Garrard may have shot an email around to the councillors saying that it doesn't without providing any facts, but I have here some information confirming that the Australian government does in fact have a breach of agreement with the ANZUS, which is the Australian, New Zealand and United States treaty. Now, I have done quite a bit of research, which, mind you, I've not done this much research since my high school exams, and this was over a decade ago. But I do have a copy of the ANZUS treaty here, which is the appendix, which contains all of the clauses which the Australian government is a treaty to, and successive governments since the 1960s, and this year we will be celebrating the 70th anniversary of this document. But item number 1E of the ANZUS agreement states the following. It states that the treaty which prohibits signatories from doing anything to assist the nuclear weapons of state and of activities, including stockpiling them as a deterrent. If this was signed, then Australia would be banned from assisting the United States through the Northwest Cape installation and the Pine Gap.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Point of order called. Thanks, Councillor Garrett.
Councillor Dark, wonderful that you have spent so much time brushing up on the ANZUS Treaty.
Please?
But the point is that your interpretation of this, of our agreement, is in fact in conflict with the interpretation of the government and of the Labor Party.
Thank you. Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll reply to the point of order that Councillor Garrett raised, because I'm actually reading the terms and the quotes and comments from an esteemed former Member of Parliament, and his name is the Honourable Gareth Evans, the Labor member for Holt, former Senator, former Foreign Affairs Minister, and I thought Councillor Garrett would try this tactic. So I will just quickly read out Mr Gareth Evans, for those of you who don't know, was a former federal member for Holt. His office was in Lonsdale Street in Dandenong, and he was a member, and still is a member, of the Labor Party. Since he was the member, he served as a Cabinet Minister in the Hawke and Keating Labor governments. He was Minister for Energy, Minister for Transport, Communications, Foreign Minister.
Point of order.
Councillor Garrett.
We don't need a CV on the previous minister.
Mayor, this goes to context of what Councillor Garrett has accused me of being incorrect. So if I could just finish, and then if Councillor Garrett still objects, then that's the case. But I can assure you that what I've got here is correct information. And I'm happy to table this into the council minutes if that's so wish. But this does go to the point as what Councillor Garrett's saying. Since he has concluded his career in Parliament, he's contributed over 150 journal articles, has honorary doctorates from the Melbourne, Sydney, Carleton and Queen's universities, and he is an advocate, one of the biggest supporters of the Anti and Foreign Affairs Anti-Nuclear Proliferation Treaty.
Yes, Councillor Garrett.
Senator Garrett, who is someone I greatly admire, is no longer an active member of the Labor Party. The leader of the Labor Party, Albanese, who has spoken in support of this treaty...
Mayor, this is no point of order. Councillor Garrett, I'll say.
Please, if we could just finish it. Councillor Garrett, you have a right of a reply. Please, just let... Please.
Thank you, Mayor. And so what, yes, was, I'm not sure Mr Evans' membership of the Labor Party, not my cup of tea, and I wouldn't know whether he still is or isn't, but he definitely is a stakeholder, stalwart of the Labor Party. But he does chair the Asia Pacific Leadership Network for the Nuclear Non-Proliferation and Disarmament, the APLM, and the advisory board of the ANU Centre for Asian Australasian Research. He has previously chaired major international commissions on intervention and state sovereignty and nuclear non-proliferation and disarmament from 2008 to 2010. Now, I am, by trade, nowhere near as qualified. I asked for an extension of 2 minutes. No, 1 minute?
One more minute, please.
Yep. So on that, he is the most suitably qualified person to talk about the Nuclear Proliferation Treaty. And what he does say, as what I was touched on before being interjected, was he states that Section 1E of the treaty prohibits signatories from doing anything to assist a nuclear weapon state, including stockpiling them as a deterrent. Australia would then be banned from assisting the United States through the Northwest Cape installation and Pine Gap, which are critical components of the alliance relationship used to communicate and coordinate with nuclear submarines in the United States arsenal. Instead, Australia should reduce the risk by calling for reduced numbers of nuclear weapons, a doctrine of no first use, and this is what Dr Evans has said himself. So this isn't something that is a purely Liberal Party or government policy. This is something that the Labor Party and the stalwarts of the Labor Party have got concerns. Whilst I understand that Councillor Garrett has read some recent media coverage, I know that Mr Albanese, the Leader of Opposition, has made some commentary. Asked for an extension for 2 minutes.
He's asked for an extension. Moved by Councillor Nomedi, seconded by Councillor Milkovich, that 2 minute extension. Councillor Dark, please.
Thank you, Mayor. If the concerns are raised by somebody such as Dr Evans, who is a preeminent person in this industry and knows the agreements to the back of the hand, then it is something that is deeply concerning, and it does clearly show that there are, in fact, conflicts.
That's all right. Keep going.
Yep, that does show that there are, in fact, conflicts with this. And I did confirm that, once again, as I said, with the ANZUS Treaty, which I'm happy to table into the agenda. And I do have a copy of the original Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty signed from 1968, which confirms that Section 1E is, in fact, a contravention. And that is something why this council cannot afford to support it. The reason why the federal government does not support it The previous governments, there were some quotes as well that I haven't brought with me this evening from the Honourable Julia Gillard and Kevin Rudd, former Prime Ministers, both backing that the Australian-American alliance is a critical part of infrastructure. And that is why the Australian government cannot sign the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. But this council moving today to push for something which is factually incorrect, something we cannot support and cannot sign, would then be a laughing stock. It's basically forcing the Australian government to sign something that we just simply cannot sign, and they cannot sign. And that is why I'm opposed to Councillor Garrett's notice of motion.
Thank you, Councillor Dark, and I do apologise for not doing the point extension properly. I only took on the people who moved and seconded. I should have asked for opposition. I didn't, so I do apologise. Sorry.
I'd like to speak against the motion.
Yep. Councillor Mehdi.
I'm a little bit concerned tonight. This notice of motion is committing us to writing to, there's 3 or 4 points in this. Normally when a notice of motion comes up, it normally would come and asking for a report and would get some advice from our council directors. Proper advice. This is not giving me the right advice. I'm hearing Councillor Garrett, I'm hearing Councillor Dark. In the back of my mind, I'm hearing the people of Keysborough South screaming, my footpaths, my soccer fields, my roads. There's thousands of people who are going to be losing JobKeeper, JobSeeker. I was elected on this council to make decisions, the right decisions that come from proper reports from our officers who are paid to make those reports for us councillors, instead of doing this notice of motion, making us up sign on this and that. To me, I'm not going to support this motion because it should have come up as asking for a report, a proper report to come to council, for councillors to make the decisions on a proper report. I can't agree on this motion at the moment, so I'm not supporting this motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mehdi. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Trom, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I agree with both sides, but I don't sit on the fence. I think that because that we can't do anything much for it, because you see that already from when 2 nuclear bombs put onto Japan to the end of the Second World War, and after that the Cold War, and the nuclear weapon is developed so fast and so quick now, and now the people get stronger and very stronger than 100 times compared with the bomb before in 1945. And I agree with you that we can't do anything much, and maybe some people feel nothing. We can't stop anyone. But because we present for people, therefore we have to think about people need and people wish. We have to try to raise up, and maybe can limit something like that. But make it not develop so quick like this, at this moment. But I think that I agree with Councillor Barrett, and support her. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Trom. Councillor O'Reilly, you wanted to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. I think we've probably gone into too much detail on this issue. This should just come up, make a decision either way, and then that's the end of it. Just expressing the will of council. Right? This motion is not going to cause a tectonic shift in national policy on nuclear weapons. So for that reason, and as other councillors have mentioned, we've got a whole raft of other issues that we are more directly responsible for, and our constituents would want us to be focused on that. So I'll support it. All it will cost council is a couple of letters to be written, unless we let it distract us by talking too long about it and going into all the details of it. So that's all I've got to say. Let's move on. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly. Any other speakers for or against? No, you're right to reply, Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and Thank you to all those that have spoken in opposition and support. What I would say is that Councillor Dark, while I applaud the amount of homework that he has done on this issue, his case rests and falls on Dr Evans' interpretation of this, and I would say that Dr Evans is no longer a critical player in this. In fact, Albanese is the leader for the Labor Party, and the Labor Party have described this as a major breakthrough. The Australian Labor Party just committed to sign and ratify the UN Treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons when it forms government. I would also state that Councillor Duck is incorrect on a number of points, in that there are states within America that in fact have signed this, and I'd also take issue with the point that that we are doing this and neglecting our ward, our issue. I defy you to find one issue that
point of
I
order,
have
Madam
not-
Mayor.
Point of order called.
I've never heard Councillor Garrard in her council material when she was going for election to bring up this. So it is a point of order. So that is a time where I've never heard you raise this issue in the past.
I don't think that's a point of order.
I don't think so.
Why can you elaborate why that's not a point of order, Councillor Long, or Mayor Long?
She was not a councillor when she was raising these.
Never raised.
But it's, in election campaigns, a lot of things get raised.
So, Councillor Mehdi, I can't raise any other issue in the next 4 years that I didn't talk about in the campaign. Is that your point?
I'm just wondering what you're going to raise with the Mayor's.
Yes, it's my call. Councillor Garrard.
So my point was, Councillor Mehmeti, that I spend a lot of time dealing with the issues of the residents in Keysborough South, including discussing this issue. I represent a ward with highly educated, highly professional, highly intelligent residents who are deeply concerned about this issue, as they are concerned about a number of issues, as I represent them on a number of issues. So to the point of that I am neglecting other issues, I think that's clearly been discredited. I am concerned for the future of our children. I am concerned for the future of the city of Greater Dandenong. I'm concerned for the wider global community. I can do that as a councillor. I can do that and look after rubbish and look after toilets and look after all the other issues. I am capable of that. I'm an extremely capable councillor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we'll take a vote on this notice of motion. All those in favour of the notice of motion, please raise your hand. Councillor Trong, Councillor O'Reilly, Councillor Foster, Councillor Garrard, Councillor Long. All those against? Councillor Formoso, Councillor Mehmeti, Councillor Tan, Councillor Lim. One hand will be enough, Councillor Milkovich and Councillor Dark. So what was that, 5-6? Lost. Your motion's lost. Thank you. Item number 6, reports from councillors, delegates and councillors' question. Councillor Dark, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Mayor, it's been a very busy fortnight as we have certainly come out of COVID, and we're certainly starting to ramp up with the events. Over the last couple of weeks, I've attended a couple of events. I had a meeting with Council Formoso in the South East United, the Turkish soccer club based both the Walton and the Lower Stewart Reserve, and they're growing at a very rapid rate as well. And it was good to see, whilst myself and Council Formoso were there, so many young kids turning up to play, parents dropping them off, parents also sticking around to hang out, and it's become quite a good area down there. I've actually never been to the Lower Stewart Reserve, so it was actually good to also check out and see what the facility is looking like. I also had the ability to attend the second Springvale Scouts camp at Gilwell Park this weekend, up in Gembrook. I've actually never been there before, and I understand that quite a few councils have been there in the past. But the second Springvale Scouts are one of the biggest scout groups in the city of Greater Dandenong. They have over 100 children involved who are local kids who get involved and participate. They attend camp, get involved in local community badges and things. I attended there because Ben Morscop from the second Springvale Scouts was the third recipient so far in 12 months to receive the Queen Scout Award, and the Queen Scout Award being the highest achievement you could possibly receive across a whole lot of categories, including having to achieve badges in different things. He was also one of the Scouts who attended this council meeting, or a previous council meeting, to get his citizenship badge. and he was very, very excited to actually be able to be a recipient of that. It was handed to him by Lord Baden-Powell, who's actually the great-grandchild of the founder of Scouts, Mr. Baden-Powell, and he actually attended with his wife, and it was actually an excellent ceremony. I also had the fortunate, the benefit of being the Keysborough Ward councillor this weekend. Keysborough Ward absolutely cleaned up with the cricket, which is always something that's good to see. We had wins from the Puckmore Pirates Cricket Club, the Coomera Cricket Club and Keysborough Cricket Club. The Keysborough Cricket Club match was played at the lowest two-week reserve, so I think Dandenong North did pretty well out of the canteen there for the day, but it was actually a very, 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 very close game. So these are the best games to have. That was, I suppose, very, very good across all three to see such good games of cricket occurring. If we could just write, I suppose, a few letters to Mayor. The first three to the cricket clubs on the congratulating for winning, and then second to Ben Morscourt from Gilwell Park from the Scouts, Second Springvale Scouts, on receiving his Queen Scout Award. That would be great. The third one I want to raise as well. One of the people involved with Scouts who's been involved with the Scout group and the Second Springvale Scouts for over 40 years is Jennifer or Jenny Morgan, who's the mother of Leanne Morgan and Darryl Morgan, who are both heavily involved with the Second Springvale Scouts. She received an award for 40 years of service to Scouts whilst I was up at the campsite, and that is one of the very rarest achievements that have been achieved in terms of scouting hours. She's 74 years old, has been an active foster carer for over 30 years, and even at 74 is still currently caring for 5 kids. So she's definitely very active in the community and stalwart. I think it would be worthwhile if we could please send her a letter congratulating her and just get in touch with her as well, if we could please do something to deal with that. My first question I have for this evening. I've received some correspondence from a resident in the city of Great Dandenong regarding the animal registrations. There was some correspondence, had a couple of calls about the failure of a BPay when they've gone to pay for it. There were some issues with, I believe, the BPay number and the post-pay number that didn't match up on the pet registration letters. They've subsequently then received another letter, which was dated the 17th of March, which stated that there was an error within the print house and the previous ones were disregarded. I just want to confirm with regards to the costs of council, one, for the reprint and the posting of those letters, whether council's out of pocket. The letter does say that it was done by a print house, but I don't know whether that was internal or external. And two, if we've covered that off, just to make sure, given that we're talking significant amounts of money being paid through the BPay system, that we're then not going to have any potential errors in the future where we potentially send out the next quarter rates notices with an incorrect number and we pay somebody else. Just get that.
Which one? Mr. Jenge, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we will take that question on notice, and between Mr. Bosman and I will look into it. If it was a printing house error, generally the printing house would cover those costs, not council. But I would need to confirm that with you, Councillor Dark, and we'll do that with you in the coming days.
Thank you, Mr. Jenge. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, when I attended the Puckmore Pirates Grand Final, a lot of residents had actually asked me what the update was with the reinstatement of the wetlands at Wachta Reserve. That was because if you look from where the clubhouse is looking out across, it actually looks like barren desert. They've finished and it looks very smooth in terms of the layout of the ground, but there was a lot of querying going on with that. And the second as well, Puckmore Pirates have explained that they've been looking for some sort of renovations. There's quite a bit of damage to the building, just general wear and tear. The footpath out the front on the balcony that's broken away, and there's actually quite a bit of a fall, and there's been a couple that have tripped over that. I just wonder if we could please, one, have that raised as a merit investigated, and two, if we could please get in touch with the ground, just to get an update on what's happening with the Wachta Reserve Master Plan.
Mr. Cipriani, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, at the Wetlands Reserve, we've recently finished all the, if you like, the hard earthworks, so the clay liner that will then receive the stormwater. Prior to releasing that or turning that water on, we need to do our planting, which is the next step, and we've also got tenders out for the boardwalks and associated work. So the project is continuing, but we're going into stages 2 and 3, which will be occurring in the next few months.
Thank you, Mr. Cipriani. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, the next question I got ambushed at the Keysborough Cricket Club, who played Rowley Allen Reserve, and they've also indicated the same thing as well. They did. I know that there was a meeting last week with regards to the Rowley Allen Master Plan, but the clubs are saying to me that they haven't had a whole lot of correspondence between the two. They've had some queries regarding on the master plan drawings that they've received from I believe, Mr. Cullen, there is a distinct shape outline that the pavilion's been put in terms of there's an L and a crevice that I was shown, and they were wondering whether that was actually formally a part of the pavilion given the way that it's been designed, or whether that was just put there as sort of an inanimate object, and they'll still be able to have some correspondence with regards to the pavilion.
Mr. Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you through yourself. This is a question that I will consult with my colleague, Mr. Fiddler, on. There has been correspondence between ourselves and the various clubs. It is ongoing work. It's work that's in hand at the moment. So let me take the question on notice. I'll come back to you and I'll copy the councillors in on exactly where we're at in regard to those discussions and the status of the master plan. Thank you,
Thank you,
Madam
Mr. Bosman. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. No further questions.
Thank you. Councillor Milkovich.
Madam Mayor, thank you very much. It seems to be the cricket clubs are the flavour of the month. I've got one, just a quick one. Can I get an update from the relevant officer in regards to a cricket fence or cricket net replacement, the safety cricket net replacement at Louis Toohig Reserve that was asked by Dandenong North Cricket Club? That's not the new part, but the older part where the bushes have intertwined with the fence and sort of pulled it down. That's the part that's actually on Melbourne Water land, and I think Melbourne Water land, we're asking for some sort of permission. Is there any update on that, please? They've been asking.
Mr. Cipriani, please.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Look, no, I don't have an update for that tonight. I'll take that question on notice and follow.
Thank you. Councillor Milkovich.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to pass on a great deal of thanks from a local Rosewood Downs residents in regards to, again, coffee truck that's now fully operational at Rosswood Tennis Club parking lot. The residents are quite delighted. They're quite happy, and they're hoping to see the truck there for many, many years to come. So I'd like to thank the planning department yet again on this wonderful move. Now, I've had a couple of residents in Dandenong North ask me, is it possible for you, Madam Mayor, to relevant officer, to move at least one disabled parking spot on Brady Road parking, which is on the other side of the street from the shops, closer to in front of the shops. I've actually witnessed myself, one of the residents on the walker, having quite a lot of trouble walking across, and it does take a bit of time. Like if you're mobile, then it doesn't really make a difference, but if you're not, the cars tend to not slow down below 60, so obviously that's an issue as well. But is it possible to maybe just move one disabled spot at the actual in front of the shops, particularly maybe in front of the pharmacy, because that's obviously where these residents would quite often frequent. Thank you.
Mr. Cipriani, please.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Look, that's certainly possible. I'll have our traffic engineers have a look at that and see what comes up.
Thank you, Councillor Milkovich.
And final for this evening, I'll make it very brief. Many times a day I drive past the intersection, not the intersection, but the actual pedestrian crossing at Ann Street and Herbert Street, where Dandenong High School is. And I've noticed for the last, I don't know how many months, years, that those super expensive, super high-tech, movable bollards are in the ground still. I'd like to ask, are they going to be put back in action? Because that was, as far as I understand, that was the high-tech solution that was offered. At the moment, what they're operating with is a $50 set of bollards and a little bit of string strung to. So is they're going to be put back in operation or not? Does anyone know? Thank you.
Mr. Cipriani, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, they will be put back in operation. There's an investigation going on at the moment to improve the drainage. The problem is getting good drainage to the base of those bollards to make them more reliable. So that investigation is underway at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Milkovich.
That's it, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lim, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a representative of our community, I sort of tend to inspect Springvale Central activity on a regular basis. My first question is the footpaths and the driveway in Springvale Activity Centre. Many dangerous tripping hazard and pothole around Springvale Central. Especially, I can see some part, it looks like either electrical or telephone pit outside the multi-level car park toilet is sunken. Alleyway leading to multicultural place has uneven cracks in the footpath. Next to Golden Plaza Shopping Centre as well, it means Maxim Restaurant as well, as in the first number 1 St. John Avenue private car park, there is a lot of cracks in the footpath and holes in the driveway as well. Any other way that we can look into it, or any other department that we can go into to look into that issue?
Mr. Cipriani, please.
Yes, Madam Mayor. It sounds like that might be a mix of issues on private land as well as public land, but we can certainly look at the the areas of the public land that we're responsible for.
Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. To me, even though it's private land, any other way that our council officer can go there to inspect and also to give some education to those private business and especially body corporate, just make sure they do the right thing as well. Otherwise, we probably may create more issue for our city, and the most important, probably make a bad image for our city as well. The second issue is that the tree and garden maintenance, the tree across from what we call the name of the restaurant's name, Street Hot Pot, were removed without replacement or proper removal of the stump, could pose a tripping hazard. A lot of dead and overgrown branches hanging off the tree along Buckingham Avenue and Balmoral Avenue. Should we maintain the greenery in the area more actively? Thanks for that question.
Which one? Chikrigani, please, Vista.
Yes, Madam Mayor, we'll certainly have a look at those as well. We do regular inspections of the trees and footpaths throughout the municipality and record them in a priority list. So I can have a particular look at those specific sites as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. The third question is littering. The number 1 St. John Avenue Plaza has a lot of litter, such as cardboard and packaging foam. Litter most likely come from business owner. How can we educate these business owner and reprimand them, or otherwise they not going to to keep our city clean and tidy? These factors all form a negative image of Springvale Central, that is city of Greater Dandenong as well. How can we work together to solve this issue? Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you to yourself. Councillor Lim, we will engage using our litter prevention and education officer. We'll engage with the area. Education obviously is that first port of call, and so I think that if we can have a rollout, maybe together with the shop owners in the area, an education program, we might have a broader success in dealing with the litter issue rather than an enforcement issue to start off with. So leave it with me to look at it from an education point of view, and I will liaise directly with you on the way that might be best implemented. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Bosman.
Councillor Tan, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is my report since the last council meeting. On the 12th to 13th of March, I attended the Council Strategic Planning Workshop. The last few years, Council have been conducted the workshop locally, such as at our local reserve or Springvale City Hall supper room. However, due to the tragic bushfires from last year, City of Greater Dandenong Council wanted to help our regional rural business that affected by this event, also by COVID-19. So Council agreed to have our strategic workshop to be held in a rural area instead of locally. So I just want to say thank you again to the CEO, all the directors, councillors who have been and contribute to their times away from their families and friends for the long weekend and just focus on work. So we got a lot of productive workshop for the whole 2 days, so thank you. On the 7th of March, I attended the citizenship ceremony. So we welcome 100 newer citizens to our city with our Mayor, Councillor Long. On the 18th of March, I attended the Gender Equality, Diversity and Inclusiveness. 21st of March, I attended the New Year, so Covan flag raising ceremony for the 2021 Vietnamese Tet, which is hosted by the Vietnamese Community Australia Victoria. So also I just want to say Happy Harmony Week from last week, 15th to 21st of March, which we celebrate cultural diversity and as the most cultural diverse community in Australia, Greater Dandenong really has something to celebrate. So normally we would have like hundred of cultural different people from different background celebrate here at Harmony Square, performing all different the cultural dance. So, but this year due to COVID restriction, they conducted online instead. My question for tonight to the relevant officer. Occasionally, there's fireworks display at a tab or hotel, especially in Keysborough. So residents around that area never receive flyers or information related to the fireworks. So just to the relevant officer, what is our fireworks policy for commercial buildings such as tab or hotel? Thanks.
Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Through yourself, Councillor, there is a requirement to obtain a permit for the discharge of fireworks. Failure to do so is an offence under the local law, and if we can actually identify who is responsible, we will take the necessary action. Unfortunately, in many situations, especially like at New Year's, etc., residents will illegally discharge fireworks, and it's almost impossible in those sort of situations to identify the guilty parties. But if you have a situation where you know of a commercial operator or any operator, in fact, that has illegally discharged fireworks, we can and will follow that up. You can provide me with that information. I'm happy to pass that on to the Manager of Regulatory Services. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor
Thank you.
Councillor Mamedi.
Thank you. I had a resident contact me regarding the intersection of Kirkham and Hammond Road, Dandenong. There's some road there which has got some potholes, etc., uneven. I think we need to look at it urgently. I normally don't bring these up, but being an intersection like Kirkham and Hammond Road, which is gets a lot of traffic and it's quite a dangerous intersection. So if council officers can please look into that. It's on Hammond Road.
Mr Chickragana.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I will certainly have a look at that. I'll get Claire out there to check that out for us.
Thank you. Councillor Mamedi.
Thank you, Mr Cinquegrano. My next question is regarding a Moomba parade. A fortnight ago, I asked council officers to investigate in putting a no standing on one side. I had received an email last week saying that council officers have looked at it and their thing to come back is saying that they don't need to do anything and leave it as it is. Unfortunately, I do not accept that. The residents don't accept it. So what I'm asking through you, Madam Mayor, to the relevant officer is if we can have an on-site meeting with the residents Sunday morning. It can be as early as you like, 9, 10, 10:30 in the morning, because it's quite dangerous. And I'm not sure whether the council officers actually went down there on a Sunday morning to have a look and investigate. That was not provided in the response. But I think it's quite dangerous, and I think that we need to have an on-site meeting with myself and the relevant council officer and residents, if that's possible.
Thank you. Mr Chickragana, please.
Yes, Madam Mayor, we're happy to meet with Councillor Mamedi on site.
Thank you, Councillor Mamedi.
Thank you very much. With Councillor Tan just acknowledged Harmony Day. Harmony Day is celebrated annually on the 21st of March in Australia. Harmony Day began in 1999, coinciding with the United Nations International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. And I was very happy to see my grandchildren dress up in their traditional clothing and go to Dandenong South Primary School, which is one of the most multicultural schools in Australia. And I'm not sure if they just do that at Dandenong South Primary School or whether they do it at other primary schools, but I think it's so fantastic that these kids get all dressed up and celebrate Harmony Day. So well done to Dandenong South Primary School and all the other schools that are engaged in doing that. So that was fantastic to see that. And also to our other community who celebrated Nowruz, Happy Nowruz, to our community who celebrated over the weekend. And that's all. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Garrard, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had the honour and privilege of attending a number of important events in the last 2 weeks. Yesterday, I attended the opening of the community centre for the Druze Victoria community that will serve as an important gathering place for the community. In particular, I'd like to thank Councillor Hadi Saab, the Deputy Mayor of the City of Kingston, for his warm welcome, and I wish to congratulate the community on the great progress they have made on that centre. I'd also like to thank the Cleveland Street Mosque for their warm welcome as part of the Mosque Open Day, a day in which the Muslim community opened their doors to build connections with the wider community. I also attended a tour of the Dandenong Market and had the pleasure of meeting the new board members. It was wonderful to hear of the future plans to be developed for the market, and I indicated I looked forward to hearing back from extensive community consultation on these plans. I also attended the flag-raising ceremony for the Vietnamese community during the Festival of Tet. I also proudly attended the Women for Justice March along with 110,000 women across Australia, and it was a very proud moment indeed for women across this country. I've also been working with the council staff on the redevelopment plans for the Westwood Boulevard Park in Keysborough South. I thank the executive team for their assistance in ensuring that the final plans will be responsive to the community feedback from over 220 residents who showed great interest in the development of this concept plan. I'd really like to highlight a fantastic project that has started called Mothers Legal Help. This project is a health justice project between Springvale Monash Health Legal Service and the City of Dandenong Maternal and Child Health Program, supporting the response to women and children experiencing family violence. This project is a great example of a collaborative approach and consistent with the call by the Royal Commission into family violence, into the health sector, who stated health professionals have a powerful role to play in family violence. The funding was provided through the Council's Strategic Grants Program and will support the placement of a lawyer working 1 day a week over 2 years inside the maternal child health centres. I sincerely congratulate the maternal child healthcare nurses who instigated this project and council staff involved, and look forward to hearing the great progress of this project. I have been approached by a number of residents in my ward in Keysborough South who are increasingly concerned about the level of crime in this area. Local police reports have shown a significant increase in house break-ins, car break-ins and thefts. Councillor Tan and I raised this issue with the Community Safety Advisory Committee recently, and I have met with Dawn Vernon, the head of the City of Greater Dandenong Neighbourhood Watch, who is going to attend with me a meeting with the police to look at ways in which we can increase community safety in this area. The residents of Keysborough South have the right to feel safe in their communities, and we will do everything we can to work collaboratively to ensure that. So my questions tonight, Madam Mayor, are to the relevant officer. In light of the reduction in government support in the forms of JobKeeper and JobSeeker at the end of this month, will the Council reconsider business registration costs reductions to assist the many businesses who are still doing it tough at this time?
Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Through yourself, Councillor, less than 5%, in other words 79 out of 1,669 of our registered businesses have yet to pay their registration fees within the extended period, which ends 31st of May 2021, and that's for the health premises. In other words, it's a very, very low number. However, we will certainly keep an eye on this situation and bring the question back for further consideration should it become apparent that an extension of future registration periods is warranted. At this stage, our data and our stats show that there is no stress within that system. As I say, it's less than 5% that are outstanding, which is not in a would be fairly typical. But if going into the future it becomes apparent that we need to bring that back, we will. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor Garrard.
Can I follow up on that?
That's it.
Can I follow up on that response?
Yeah.
Just to follow up on that response, I don't think that the payment of the fees is really an indication of the stress, and also to highlight that the stress is ongoing, that we are just beginning to see the beginning of financial stress on businesses as JobSeeker and JobKeeper are reduced. My next question, Madam Mayor, is can the Council provide an update on the progress of the COVID plan that will clearly inform the community of the comprehensive assistance program the Council has in place to assist the community at this difficult time and into the future?
Mr Ginge, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm pleased to say that we actually distributed a draft of the COVID recovery and response plan to councillors this morning, And following councillor feedback over the course of this week, we hope to publish the plan online by the end of this week. That's the plan at this stage. Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Mr Jench. Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Mr Jench. Through you, Madam Mayor, can the council provide an update on the Green Wedge recreational trail plan?
Mr Cipriano, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll take that question on notice and respond later.
Thank you. Councillor Garrett, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In light of the concern expressed in the community over the cost of the recent strategic planning event, will the council plan in future to hold these events on council premises at no cost to the community?
Mr Benny, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think it's a question that each of the councillors will undoubtedly take on notice and give consideration to. But from my point of view, in each and every year that this council has held a strategic planning workshop, it has given consideration before the event and after the event to the benefits and disbenefits of holding the workshop in-house on location within the city and at another location. And council has opted to use both over a number of years. Council had a discussion in December last year as to where this most recent workshop should be and determined that for a number of reasons it should be in a remote location. Council also had a debrief immediately after the event on the Saturday and heard different views about the success or otherwise of that particular event. So that has happened every year, a pre-discussion and a post-discussion. And whether there is community concern or not, and none of that is ignored and disregarded, I think Council will do what it always does for all future events, and then have a conversation before the event and after the event about the appropriate location for it. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Benny.
Thank you, Mr Benny. I would just like to acknowledge that this is not a normal time, that this is a time of great hardship during COVID, and that perhaps exceptional circumstances should perhaps generate altered behaviour. My last question, Madam Mayor, is that I've also been approached by a number of residents to create Verge Gardens. In recognition of the need to strengthen community ties following COVID, will the Council explore Verge Gardens in tandem with the policy on community gardens currently under review?
Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Councillor Garrett, that's not unlike or dissimilar to a question that we heard earlier this evening from a question from the public. And as I mentioned in that, the existing local laws are currently being reviewed, and it will be proposed that planting on nature strips, verge gardens, etc., be permitted as long as they comply with the council nature strip guidelines that are being developed at the moment, and that we will be putting that reviewed with a draft review of the local law out fairly soon to community consultation. Separately, but running concurrently with that, obviously, is the development of the policy on community gardens, and we expect that to be coming through to councillors for discussion in the not too distant future as well. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Is that it, Councillor Garrett? Councillor Foster, please.
Nothing to report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Formoso, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay, I've got quite a few things that I've done, so I won't bore everybody with everything that I've done, but I have been very busy meeting with sporting clubs and residents of Noble Park North Ward. One of the things that I did attend, which I was very excited about on Thursday, the 11th of March, was the first Women's League match in the Southeast, which was between Melbourne City and Western City. And we are holding another event here Thursday, the 25th of March, which is going to be at the Dandy City Ground at 7 o'clock. So I highly recommend that our councillors and residents attend. It's against Perth Glory. So I was very excited to see a women's match here in the Southeast. So I hope there's a lot more of that. The other thing that I had the real pleasure of attending was the Greater Dandenong Young Leaders organised a youth leadership forum called the Youth Voice at Springvale Town Hall. I attended with Mayor Angela Long, and it was amazing to hear what our youth have got to say about their ideas and views moving forward in our municipality and beyond. It was a real pleasure to be there with them. I also went on a Dandenong Chamber of Commerce
food walking tour, which was on the 17th of March, which was absolutely fantastic. And I highly recommend my colleagues and anyone that can attend this event to do so. It gives you a real history as to what goes on in Dandenong and what we've had achieved during this time, and also gives us a taste of some of the delicious food that we have on offer. So that I highly recommend doing that. And I also had, in relation to your question, Mr. Councillor Milkovich, regarding the Dandenong High School bollards on Herbert Street, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I actually had a meeting with the Vice Principal last week in regards to that, and it's a safety issue for the residents, it's a safety issue for the teachers, and most certainly a safety issue for the students on a daily basis. He actually proposed, and I think I agree with this, which is to perhaps block the street off completely. So I hope to bring that to council in the near future if we possibly can, because the bollards are just not working. They're a ridiculous cost to council, and I'd like the relevant officer to respond if they could, please.
Thank you, Councillor Formoso. Councillor O'Reilly? Or did you ask a question? I'm sorry. Mr. Benny, please.
Madam Mayor, if I can just, I know Mr. Tinklegrana commented early on the difficulties that we seem to be experiencing with perhaps the electricals, but on the point that you made, I will only add that this was a very contentious issue in council a number of years ago when that crossing was created.
Yes.
Full closure of the road was one option, boom gates were another option, and electrically operated bollards was the option that was settled on. So I think it was a matter from memory that probably came back to council with rescission motions and other things 2 or 3 times. So I'm only saying to you that there is a history, doesn't mean it can't be revisited, but we will need to dig into that history and bring back to you a whole lot of information around the connectivity or disconnectivity of Herbert Street in relation to that location. So I'm sure the officers arising from your question that we received a couple of weeks ago are working on developing that background information for all councillors to consider.
Thank you, Mr. Benny. Councillor Formoso, please.
Thank you, Mr. Benny, and I certainly didn't want to cause any issues, especially as a new councillor, but it is definitely an issue that we're dealing with on a daily basis, so I look forward to hearing further reports. The other issue that I've had on multiple occasions actually is residents that are living on Browns Road and the amount of traffic that's going through there, and not only traffic, the speed, and more importantly, the heavy vehicles that are going through there. It is just ridiculous. I go there quite often just to have a look at what's happening. The size of the semi-trailers often are too wide for the road, and I understand that a lot of these trucks are using this as a detour because it's so cost effective in relation to going all the way around. And I do believe there was a system in place where we were fining such heavy vehicles doing so, but that seems to have died down a little bit. So I was wondering what we could possibly do in terms of enforcing these rules, because there is the time that they're not supposed to go through there, and the residents are saying that often in the middle of the night their house is shaking from the heavy vehicles that are going through there, and just what distress that's causing for a lot of the residents, and what we can possibly do in terms of fining or monitoring this space a little bit better. So if the relevant officer could please respond. Thank you.
Mr. Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you. I think there are a number of officers that need to collaborate on this, Councillor Formoso. I'll take the lead on it. We'll have a look at what has happened in the past and what options we might employ in the future in dealing with this issue. I'll also consult directly with you in respect of the list of issues that you have with Browns Road, and that will help inform us on the way forward. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Councillor Formoso, please.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly.
Could I just add in just a supplementary to Councillor Formoso's just comment just before, if I could? So just I'm aware that this issue with Browns Road, and I will just add, just while you're doing your research as well, I know in the last 12 months that there has been nationwide tolling that have moved into Browns Road, and they're actually people that have taken over the factories there. The ENS Trading Warehouse and the bigger one, Schmidt's, Cargo Bull, I think it is. Councillor Sampi attended an opening there with pretzels or something some time ago. But they're a big manufacturer of big semi-trailers as well. And that's why I know there's been a big increase in traffic along Browns Road, as well as people taking a shortcut. So if we could just have a look at who the industrial tenants are in that industrial component as well, and put sort of a cut-off between that when it hits residential, I think would be a good idea as well.
Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, yes, thank you, Councillor Duck. You're quite right. It is an industrial area, and it's about finding a balance between how one allows the industrial area to continue to operate as an industrial area, while at the same time the reasonable protection of residential amenity for the neighbouring residential. So probably no easy or quick solution, but as I said earlier, I will take lead in looking into what those options might be. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor O'Reilly, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I attended quite a few events. I'll just touch on a couple. The Dandenong Market briefing. If I can remark on that, I thought it was just such a testament to the professionalism of the board and management, how they've steered that through the times of COVID. And a telling number for me was that financially it ended up with just a small deficit, and that includes all the trader support that they've done. So with some new board members, I just think Dandenong Market Board is doing so well, and this council should be really proud of both the board and management of Dandenong Market. Mayor, I visited the Springvale District's football and netball club at Springvale Reserve on Saturday morning, and they are also a great bunch of people. They're certainly kicking goals in more ways than one. And they were talking to me that they have a whole lot of netball players, Mayor, that currently have to train in Dingley. And that's because there's no suitable facility to do that in Greater Dandenong. And when you look at parts of Springvale Reserve, there is the space there that could accommodate a netball or mixed-use ball court. So, a question without notice to the relevant director, which I believe would be the Acting Director of Engineering, is could I have some assistance with working up some sort of plan to get a ball court on Springvale Reserve? I understand these things don't happen overnight, and there's a number of steps and funding stages that would need to be gone through. But I would appreciate the acting director or arranging that assistance and going through that, because I think the outcome we would have from it ties in with council promoting female participation, increased female participation in sport, the effective use and activation of our existing sporting grounds, and of course making it easier for families with both boys and girls for them to both to participate in sport without having to drive around all different locations. So I'd appreciate the assistance and the response on that. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr Chikarana, thanks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'd have to liaise with our Sports and Recreation Department. I know they've got a sporting facility strategy, and some of those questions may be already answered in that, but I'll refer to them to give some answers on that issue.
Thank you. Councillor O'Reilly, that's it. Councillor Trong, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Last week I attended a meeting with the council staff about, with the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sophia Tang, to put the council will put a new traffic light at the corner of Harold Road and Corrigan Road. That's very important to the people because I live over there and know that very dangerous area and also black spot there. With that, I attended, the Kervang and also celebrate the New Year with the Vietnamese community and with the Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Mr. Councillor Rhonda and also Sean Early. And we have the opportunities to raise up, to reveal everything we have done during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think that, because with start earlier year, the January, I worked with a monk at on the 100 at the temple and on 125 of Lightwood Road, and raised up about over $44,000 for bushfire bill. Then after that, I because COVID coming and also some lockdown or something like that, and I made face the people, Vietnamese people, they formed a team and to make them, because they locked out at home, they nothing to do, they made the face closed face mask to give out. And local newspaper, very, very lucky, Dandenong Star, local newspaper, they put it on, and therefore, because also I have a condition that, because I have milk bar, therefore the people can come to pick up. And if not, they not allowed to come to another home, but, because my milk bar is shop, the people can come pick up. And the end of it, until now, we gave out over $31,000 closed face mask to the Dandenong residents. And also, in Vietnam, have a flood coming up mid of Vietnam, and I asked people, to collect, to donate money, and they donated over $12,100, and we sent back to over there to help Vietnamese on that problems. And that is the way it is. I also, collect the tin. I put the tin on the shop, on the shop to collect the money for Monash Children's Hospital, and I got over $4,800 for that one, and hand to them because I have to stop to go to shop to collect the tin. Therefore, I asked them to collect what I collect already, and they come to pick up, and got about over $14,800 for Monash Children's Hospital. And I think because of Vietnamese people, the word both people, and therefore they are thankful for Australian open arms to welcome them. Therefore, they do everything they can and, donate as much as they can to, pay back to Australian society. And we'd like to say thank to the Australian government and Australian people, the open arms to welcome them about 40 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. On Wednesday, the 10th of March, I attended via Zoom the 7 International Women's Day celebration. And on the Thursday, the 11th of March, I attended Noble Park Revitalisation Board meeting via Zoom. That night, I attended the Melbourne City versus Western Sydney Wanderers soccer match at Police Paddocks. Sydney won 4-0. On Friday the 12th and Saturday the 13th of March, I attended the Council Strategic Planning Workshop. Sunday the 14th of March, I attended Noble Park RSL Annual General Meeting. Monday the 15th of March, a councillor briefing on Rowley Allen Reserve Concept Plan. Tuesday the 16th of March, Youth Leadership Forum, Youth Voice, which Councillor Formoso just mentioned as well. COVID-19 Business Recovery Task Force via Teams, and Dandenong Day Nursery Committee meeting via Zoom. Wednesday the 17th of March, the Children's Advisory Group meeting, election of the 2021 City of Greater Dandenong Junior Mayor, Murray Congress from St Mary's Primary School. That night, I attended the citizenship, or presided over a citizenship of 100 new Australian citizens. On the 18th of March, I attended the councillor induction, Gender Equality, Diversity and Inclusiveness. On the 19th of March, I attended the Williams Leadership Program, and also the soccer match between Dandenong City and Avondale. Avondale won 4-1. Saturday the 20th of March, I attended the Covan New Year flag raising ceremony for the 2021 Vietnamese Tet Festival. On Sunday the 21st of March, I attended the Dandenong and District Aboriginal Co-op Annual General Meeting. A bit of a fiery meeting that was. And today I presented the International Women's Day Lucky Draw Prize. First prize was won by of $300 of market value vouchers, and it was won by the Dandenong Arts Club, who then have donated it back to us, to Wellsprings for Women. So I will be doing that presentation to them tomorrow. So I'm very pleased that they didn't want it themselves, but they wanted, being International Women's Day, they wanted a women's group to actually get the money, which I will do that tomorrow, as I said. Councillor Formoso was talking about the bollards in Anne Herbert Street. There is a very long history on that. I actually was hoping we would put traffic lights in to stop the traffic going through, but there was a lot of traffic, and there was a bus route which people from the lower end of Anne and Herbert used to be able to catch to the market. That bus route, because the bollards were put in instead of traffic lights, and which stopped traffic and put more traffic along David Street right next to the primary school. It was a problem. It should have been traffic lights. I was very, very vocal about that instead of bollards. In the end, they kept on telling me the traffic lights were going to cost an extra $20,000. You know what? It costs us $20,000 a year to maintain these bollards. So I'm very upset. We're not voting. I understand we're not voting, but I have to air my grievances over not getting traffic lights for that area. All right, thank you. Mr. Benny, please. Sorry.
Yes, Madam Mayor. At the last council meeting, there were 24 councillor questions taken on notice. 22 have been answered and are included in the minutes. There are still 2 outstanding. One was from Councillor Garrett relating to Keysborough South levy costs. That's a very detailed piece of work, and that work is continuing. And the second was from Councillor Tim Dark regarding letters to newly elected fire brigade captains, and we're still waiting on the names of those captains to be able to complete the letters, but otherwise all of those are completed.
Was there one captain? One more election. So when that's over, you're going to give me the list. We'll do the letters. Thank you very much. Item number 7, urgent business. As there's no urgent business, I declare this meeting closed, and thank you for your attendance. Bloody oath I did. I was ropeable.
I think you're fudging the numbers a bit there about the trip.
No, we were.